Ever since the days of modding Minecraft on the family computer, running 400 mods at once, and frying my dad's graphics card during the 2008 recession, I have wanted to code. However, I work all day, and that diminishes my want to learn. I want to sit in front of a CRPG and rot my brain. Well, what if I told you you can have all the fun of playing an RPG while learning and making your brain bigger? Well, thanks to boot.dev, that dream is now a reality. Boot.dev uses RPG elements to help you learn coding and make you feel like a wizard. Boot.dev utilizes traditional RPG elements to keep learning, entertaining, and scratching and itching that part of your brain that wants to grind out for 15 hours a day. Boot.dev offers courses in Python, Go, Linux, JavaScript, memory, and a bunch of others that I definitely know and will definitely know after I keep taking boot.dev. If you want to start learning and grinding, head over to boot.dev and try out courses for free. And when you're ready, use code ZachTheBold on checkout for 25% off your first year when choosing the annual plan. That is 25% off your first year when choosing the annual plan. And thank you, boot.dev, for helping out the channel. Huzzah!
Warning, this video contains some spoilers for Berserk, Game of Thrones, and House of the Dead 3. Not enough spoilers to, ruin the entire show, but some people would say that's debatable. But either way, be cautious of that. Love you, bye.
When I was going over my first campaign, I made sure to have some leniency with myself because they were D&D notes. They're not meant to be read. Well, a lot of it is not meant to be read to your players. So what I wrote was for myself, and if it was rushed, then it doesn't matter. My players wouldn't hear it in the first place. And the problem I had with my first campaign was the high DCs I had, lack of story structure, lack of good plot, But when it comes to this dirty little homunculus of a TTRPG, a lot of it was meant to be read to my players, and a lot of it was read to my players. So after recounting Genesis from the Bible, we are met with our favorite faction leaders as they face off in a class/civil war. So the class disparity stems from the fact that knights can only be born of royal blood, and Forrest Allen Silver, who is a renowned swordsman, and his men cannot be knights and gets the privileges of being a knight because they're not born of royal blood. And I know this is the first thing that I'm talking about with this campaign, but it may be the most glaring problem, realistically, about this entire thing. You might be thinking, Zach, cut yourself some slack, right? What does royal blood mean? Can it be any noble that does concubines count? It's none of that. I know that because I wrote this, and I didn't think that hard about it. And it's dumb. There were 4 other factions, the orcs, the archers, the wizards, and the assassins. And the orcs were teamed up with Heinrich. Again, no one chose that but me. And the archers were sided with Forrest. So that left the wizards and the assassins to pick whoever they wanted to be with. And it's so obvious that I did zero research on how any siege warfare worked. And essentially, I saw the Battle of the Bastards from Game of Thrones, and I was just like, yeah, I guess people do fight outside of a castle because they don't want to hurt the inside. Or not, I don't know. Japando tells the troops of the stories that will be told of them, the songs that the bards will sing, the paintings of the battles, when Forrest throws his hand down and the mercenaries and the assassins ride to the front of the walls. I don't know why assassins would be on horseback. I guess I just thought it would be a cool visual, and my friends would think I'm really neat. Eventually, in the midst of battle, Silver and Japando made it to the courtyard. Japando is the archer leader. Assassin's leader? It's one of the leaders. Van Buren stood next to Lucis, both nearly untouched. Forrest and Japando were covered in blood and dirt. Yet, instead of the clang of steel, there was something else, a horn, a unique horn that hasn't been heard in over 100 years. It was the horn of the Madawi. Over 10,000 ships carrying over 5,000 men. 5,000 ships. No, 10,000 ships? 10,000 ships carrying over 5,000 men. Isn't that like 50 million? There were more troops here than the entire population of California. For whatever reason, I think I just wrote down random numbers because I didn't want to do the math, but 5,000 men over 10,000 ships? Why? I guess I wanted to make it that it seemed like there was impossible odds, but I just have to say it was 100% because I just didn't do the math. I didn't know how many soldiers were actually in a battle, right, in medieval times. So I just go, I guess it would make sense if there were 5,000 men in, 10,000 ships. Each ship carried 5,000 men. There was a quick mutual agreement between both royalty and lowborn. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if I saw 50 million troops. And we have to remember, right? The Lowborn had made it to Heinrich's castle, which is the final castle they were in. That means that all the territory of the royals had been lost at this point, and morale was lowered. The economy must be in shambles. Why is Heinrich so cocky and confident at this time? Not a player choice, remind you. The choice I made. And then all of a sudden he looks over the horizon and he sees 50 million soldiers approaching him. Silver and Van Buren blew their horns at the same time. Van Buren is Heinrich, by the way. At the same time, signaling to their men a quick armistice. King Henry, which sounds different. Which does sound different. The horns were different. They would be able to establish. They'd have to listen. They'd be in the middle of battle, and they'd go, what? They'd go, what? Which one was that? Oh, that's the horn that 50 million troops just showed up on the coast. Oh, that's that horn. And that's the horn for armistice. Okay. Well, King Henrik took a large sigh and ripped from his neck and said, God, I hate this guy. Oh, that's cool. So I love when I write what my players are saying as their characters. I don't think in any aspects we can consider this a role-playing game. Well, if I'm speaking for my players at that point, I think he ripped a rune from his neck. The ground shook, and exploding from the ground, couldn't have used a different word, emerged a ray of light, revealing Dren Elcom of New Bibis. I mean, if we think about the logistical nightmare it would be to transport 50 million people across some sea, I'd have to resurrect some kind of wizard. I'm starting to piece together that I just really like the trope of the bad guy and the good guy teaming up against a bigger threat. And that usually works when you have a full movie, a full show, there's buildup, we learn about the conflict. But since we're starting in the middle of a story, when this third bad guy shows up, it's just rushed and it doesn't make sense. And I remember as I was sweating, reading this to my players, that they had been dull, neutral faced. They're just taking in information. Because again, they did not make the background for these characters. I did. I didn't give them any heads up, no session zero, no history of this world. They showed up and I told them everything I've pretty much told you so far, including Genesis and how the world was made. So essentially it goes on for a little bit and we get into our first combat, and that slot for the combat is blank, and it will be blank for 99%. So I don't know what character, I don't even know where I wrote what these encounters would look like. Maybe I just made them up and threw out cards, but I couldn't imagine that was the case because I had planned on the battles in the first place. I guess it doesn't matter. Either way, this is an unwinnable fight, and it goes as follows. Forces surrounded all of you, an unlimited amount of soldiers, literally unlimited. Unlimited amount of soldiers continue to pour out of the boats, which also seems endless. Did I say that out loud? Which also seems endless. Your men attempt to fight them off, but they start to be consumed one by one. Cage's hands are cut off by the... Oh my God. Maybe I don't want to read this part out loud. Okay, so it goes on for a little bit, talking about how some of these characters die, which was there to make my players helpless and angry and hate the villain. Again, I'd look up and they'd be mannequins just staring at me, just taking in information. Because again, they don't know who these people are. They don't know anything. I would have had more impact if I had taken random me's from their 3DS and planted them into this story. I mean, there's no reason that it's here other than, well, I thought it was cool in Castlevania. When it was in Castlevania, I thought it was actually kind of cool. And again, and I had said this in part 1, but it had ruined like 25 of the cards I had made. They never came back. It was supposed to be like XCOM. But essentially it says, Dren pulls out a rock from his pocket and says, tell the player to say something. Was that my attempt at encouraging roleplay in a game that doesn't encourage roleplay? He said Zooey Mama, by the way. He pulled out the rune, and all he said was Zooey Mama. The party shows up at the crypt of Morgula being the fallen angel that Dren Elcom had destroyed at the beginning of time. So essentially they used a rune to get brought here. I don't know why I wrote one of my players to be this very overpowered wizard that defeated a god or a demigod. Why did I pick one player out of all my players to, I guess 3 of them had a large stake in the story, But then the orcs and the assassins didn't. Did I do that because that was the group dynamic? It wasn't. So this is the first main hub. After every big battle, they get a moment of reprieve where they can go on side quests and their shops and other things. After the party is ready, there is a sound of hooves coming throughout the woods. A mix of soldiers from both Forrest's and Heinrich's armies. So it's explained to the players that they've been gone for a week, which is stolen from Half-Life 2. No one knows where they went. However, the Madawi have taken over all of the southern part of Jewel, which is the continent they're on, and have taken over Heinrich's castle, which apparently is like this huge bastion, and they have to make their first decision as a group, which is either go save Heinrich's soldiers or go save Forrest's soldiers. Which, if you know anything about anything, is the beginning to Skyrim, when you have to choose between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks. Everything I make is just stolen from other forms of media. And I remember the person playing Forrest was like, no, yeah, we should go get Heinrich's people because they're probably more well equipped than my lowly army. And I go, no, wait, no, you're supposed to advocate for your army. You know, the one you didn't make? I feel like I wrote a short film and I brought it into a Starbucks, went up to a random person and was like, can you read these lines actually? And I just critiqued them. I critiqued something they didn't want to do. Again, same as the battles, I didn't write down what my players did, but essentially, as you can see by this page in this graph and diagram or whatever, that all kind of leads to the same place. But the impacts that their decisions would make had an impact on the final siege and also what army has the most influence. So if they chose Heinrich's army more than Forrest's, then the final ending will be skewed towards Heinrich's army. But no matter who they choose, the battle was the same, except that they headed either to the coast or they headed to the mountains, and they got 200 soldiers of either Heinrich's army or Forrest's army. We now head to our second hub area, come across one of the first side quests of interest. You all approach the men. It's a distinct group of people who are wearing steel armor with swords. Very distinct. One of them approaches you. We are the leaders of the Band of the Ravens. The Band of the Ravens. All of my friends knew what Berserk was. They knew the Band of the Hawk existed. I don't know why, if I had made this many references to Berserk, the main bad guys, the boss of the game, the lore, the Band of the Raven, that I just didn't make a fan fiction plot inside of the world of Berserk. It pretty much goes on and they have to fight some of the Band of the Hawk or Falcon or whatever I said. And if they do win, then they get more of those guys to help them in the final siege. Which brings us to our first siege. Now, the siege was broken up into two parts. Part one being the regular card game, but there was a lot more enemies this time around and different factors contributed to what was helping or hindering the party. And the second part was like a regular D&D game, except there was no exploring and no role-playing, which is 2/3 of the integral parts of what make a TTRPG a TTRPG. Sound of your small marching army rattles the leaves in the forest, all the way to a clearing. Not so far in the distance, you see a fortress built into a small mountain. So they talk of a small opening behind the main entrance of the castle that is a food pantry and leads into the heart of the building. You know that you will be spotted instantly, so a rush to the castle is optimal. There's like 4 million billion logistical things wrong with how I thought sieging a castle worked. Okay, if they make it into the castle, again, I don't know why I wrote that. There would be no reality where they didn't because the game would just be over. The group moves swiftly into the secret entrance of the whatever place that they made it to, depending on the choices they made, and find their way into an entrance covered by 2 very large doors. And in the middle of this room, the doors shut behind them and the room becomes black. A crying is heard in the distance. It's a baby's cry. It feels as if the room has disappeared and you are walking into a void. The darkness is broken all of a sudden by columns lit on fire. This is the Four Kings fight in Dark Souls, except there's a baby this time around. Oh, I had a baby card, actually. I can show that off. It ends up turning into a boss. I actually had a collection of the 2 bosses in this game, which I thought there were more, but here's art. I'm also confused on the logistics of why this is the monster. The other thing is, although I have the art of the original bosses, I don't have stats anywhere. Stat blocks. I have numbers in the middle of my page, but that's just health. I don't know what decided their health. I don't know what decided what they were at all. The monstrosity falls from a pillar, it screams a deafening sound, and begins to be absorbed by the void. This was inspired. This was inspired by House of the Dead 3, the sloth boss, as it falls down after you defeat them. A couple of soldiers enter the room, celebrating a victory. They have made it from the main gate. So, what was the point of going in if they were just going to win the battle? Wouldn't they have just won the battle anyways, with more of a victory if they had their commanders there? Okay, so they make it back to the third hub. Everything's the same. There's a few more side quests. One of the things I added was an influence leader that told kind of where political opinion was swaying, like where the Heinrichs winning, where the Forest's winning. They didn't care. My players didn't care at all. The canyon. There is a huge canyon that separates the north and the south of Jewel. Jewel is an entire continent. So, the quickest way to cross the canyon is a large bridge named after a great myth. What's the myth? What's the name? Who knows? It's called the canyon, and the next part's called the bridge. So, I don't know. I don't even know why I added that. This bridge would be a major choke point for both armies. Facing it head-on would be the quickest way across. The party walks across the vast bridge. The cold gray stone is held on. There's more. Oh, man. What I wanted to do was get the ambush on them, and it doesn't matter. They're not traveling. I could have just said they walk into the middle of the bridge. It would have had the same consistency as earlier. Okay, so there was another great battle, and my plan was, if they died at the bridge, listen to this, the sheer amount of soldiers is overwhelming for the party, because I was convinced this would kill them. Whoa. The party decides to jump off. Why did I write this? They didn't decide that. I decided that for them. The ground comes careening towards you. Dren used the wind of air rune. I had given one of the players, the wizard, of course, who I guess is the main character, a wind rune at the beginning solely for this moment so that they could have a cool way to stop everyone from dying and show how powerful the wizard is. I don't know. I don't know what was going through my head. Also, having a giant canyon and only one way to cross it makes no economical or geographical sense. What about trade? What about, travel? Unless it was like and I could, I guess, make it a large Warhammer 40K extending bridge. It feels really lazy. So they're supposed to fall off the bridge, end up at the bottom of the canyon, survive by the wind rune that the player had no idea what they did or why they had it in the first place. And then they were supposed to find a cave at the bottom of the canyon to walk through, fight a bunch of bats, make it to the other side of the canyon. But that didn't happen because I messed up all the balancing in the game. So I'm just telling you this because it's a good PSA on why not to fully write out every single route your players could possibly go. And already, we're reaching the end of the campaign. I guess it was for one night. I can't really blame myself. So I actually have a time skip, kind of. I'm thinking more of this kind of game as like an RTS, right? Where time is a bit faster and the players only kind of interact at major plot points. So I don't mind that this is 2 months in the future. They have a stronghold on the only bridge that exists that connects the two parts of the continent. First side quest goes as follows. You head over to a small fenced-in area. A couple of Maximus's men, that's the guy who leads the orcs, are wrestling against a strong bald man no one has seen before. He wears a necklace with small skulls around it. This is Dalsum from Street Fighter 6, just so you know. I write the Fortnite of TTRPGs. Before the Civil War, I was an animal trainer, all kinds actually. Since I'm using my smarts, you have to show me your smarts, all things equal kind of thing. Oh, okay. I kind of like this, actually. All right. I knew my players, my friends, IRL, would never take notes. They would not really care what was going on in the story. Why would they in this particular example? And so I decided that if they are winning all the fights, I got to give them a puzzle. And the puzzle I gave them was to ask them 6 questions about the world that they had played in for the last 8 hours. And if they got 4 out of 6 correct, then this animal trainer would help them. And I actually wrote which ones they got right and which ones they got wrong. And none of these are like complicated questions. What is the world called? Where are you going? What is the name of the crypt you teleported to 3 different times? And I think they got 3 correct. And so this is the one thing from the final siege, the final battle that they could have had that they didn't. That's so funny. I did get them on that one. I did. This gets us into pretty much the camp outside of the castle. So they win, and then the players are faced with a decision. They can either head back to the crypt or the bridge at this point, or they can just go and do the final siege, which is weird to me because I have no idea why they would want to go back to the bridge if there was nothing else to do. I guess maybe to buy more items. I just don't know what the gold system looked like. Okay, we get to the final siege, not the camp that I just mentioned. I had been keeping track of every decision and side quest they had completed. Band of the Raven level was 3. I don't know what that means. We didn't have the elephants because they failed the quiz. The orcs have a check mark next to them. I don't know why. Influence has a check mark next to it. I don't know why. And it says, whose story? Final siege, total bust. We've talked about it a million times. The orc ability I gave ruined it. They took it like 5 minutes. They got it done in like 5 minutes. You have all made it into the castle and fought your way into the royal palace. The entrance is a grand and massive. Yet seems to be no definitive leader in sight. There's only one thing left to do, and that is to claim the castle is sieged and to put a flag above the palace. If there's still an army outside and they're fighting, you putting up your banners doesn't mean you won. I mean, I guess if you made it in the castle, what? Why did I think that would... Hey there, future editing Zach here to shed some light on this situation as I've made a revelation. Shockingly, this was a Berserk reference. I know, and slight spoilers, actually. This is the same thing that happened during the Purple Rhino fight, where the Band of the Hawks snuck behind the Purple Rhino Knights and put up their banners and then declared winning. So yeah, that's what this is, and that's why I wrote it like that. Bye. As you all approach the flagpole, crash is heard from behind you. The entry in the roof just caved in, and the group is greeted once again by 2 familiar faces, a muscular man wearing a loincloth and a larger, unshaved, bearded man. These are just the Tapasa from Berserk. I have art of the boss. Look at him. I don't know why I just didn't show him images of the Tapasa from Berserk, but here you go. Why did I make so many What I want to say about this final fight is that I have no idea why I made it the half-assed TTRPG segment that I threw in just for the sake of calling it a TTRPG. The entire campaign, my players had been making their factions, had been giving them their items, their decks, and now I just make them fight with their character sheets that haven't even changed since the first fight. Oh, so of course, the bosses are defeated. The bodies of the brothers hit the ground. All is still as the sun is setting over the horizon. You walk over to the flagpole as King Heinrich, or Forrest, takes down the flag of the Badawi and replaces it with the lion crest of the Heinrichs, or the symbol of freedom, the Forest. Your men are still being slaughtered below you, and your blood rages that the tide is turning when you hear thumping and the ground begins to shake just over the horizons. There are thousands of men on horseback that are all coming to you, and they hold, and in brackets, it's all banners of people you helped and the story path you chose. King Heinrich looks over his kingdom with full awareness that the war isn't just over yet. It has just begun. The kingdom will once again be in the hands of the royal family. The end. But now we get into the fun part. I want to talk a little bit about what I would change if I had redone this, spent more time on it, maybe make a part 2. Firstly, I would make all of the cards online. I do make playing cards. I have the money for that now, so it's kind of unfair to say that. You know, I would have some designer make the cards, or even if I wanted to do it, I'd probably just steal art from Berserk and put it on it. Because which brings me into the second thing is that if I was making a Berserk game, I should have just made it in the world of Berserk. There is an original Xbox game called Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, where you are another party following parallel to the Fellowship of the Ring, and you meet a lot of the characters, and you go to the same locations, but you see, you know, different aspects of the worlds that you wouldn't really see in the movies or in the book. I would also rewrite it so that all the dumb tropes that I thought would be cool and engaging would go away, and I'd make the story much more grounded at a lower level. Instead of fighting 50 million soldiers, I would think that maybe, you know, Forrest and Heinrich have the same problem, the same conflict, but it's approached in a different way. Or maybe I would cut that arc completely and I let my party be a party. I would also let my players make their characters and their own factions. I think I'd have a pool of different characters they could choose from for their factions, and slowly over time they can build up what, the synergies would be, how their play style would be, and kind of limit the amount of cards in the pool so people were forced to, play heavy but slow, play, fast but weak, and let them decide. I think maybe naturally that would happen. I'm a little caught up on the boss battle aspect. I think I would cut the half-baked TTRPG character sheet aspect and instead make character cards that work like the other cards in the game, but you can upgrade them more individually, give them armor, different abilities, and make it so that their card is also dry erase so they can keep updating it. I don't know what that would look like, but I would definitely cut this weird hybrid that I tried to make. And you know what? Who knows? Talking about this game has made it pique my interest a little bit, so maybe in the coming months or coming year, I'll talk to a couple of developers and artists, and maybe I can get a couple mock-ups and see if the idea was there that I can maybe polish something up. And if I do, I talk about it again.